Go back in your history. Was it meeting your wife? Was it a vision that you had together? Was it something you were already kind of getting involved with on your own? What got you in this line of mission work?
Yeah, well, we were just a normal family. We had kids, and our kids were playing baseball and doing all the normal stuff, and I was working, and we just built a house. And
where were you living at the time?
we were living in British Columbia.
Okay.
And my wife got a letter from a missionary in Thailand. And this woman wanted to build an orphanage for HIV kids because she was volunteering at the government orphanages, and she noticed all these children that were shunned. Nobody wanted to touch them. They were afraid of them. They didn't know what HIV was. At that time, the stigma was incredible.
Yeah, this is probably what, like late 80s, early 90s?
Yeah, in the early 90s. So we got this letter, and she made a deal with God that she'll open an orphanage for HIV kids, and she needed $17,000. And my wife got the letter, and she promised her. Well, I remember because I was working night shift. Takes me about 5 cups of coffee to get going in the morning.
Yeah.
So she comes running up the stairs. I was just having my first cup, and she was running up the stairs like we won the lottery. She's so excited. Guess what? We're going to open an orphanage. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like giving my head a shake. I'm like, what? And she goes, yeah, and it's only going to cost us $17,000. I'm like, what? So I was like, what are you talking about? And she tells me about this letter. I'm like, Susan, we don't have $17,000. And she got really upset with me. She goes, well, we raise money for soccer teams and baseball teams. Like, why can't we raise money for this woman? And then I'm like, well, how are we going to do that? She goes, and I'm like, well, no, forget that. We're not. And she goes, what about James? What about James? I'm like, who's James? Well, we were studying the book of James. We're at James 1:27. Religion of God our Father accepts us pure and faultless as this to look after orphans and widows. She goes, what about James? I'm like, okay, well, whatever, right?
Next thing I
know, like my wife and my kids are walking down the street, knocking on doors, collecting pop bottles and beer bottles, and next thing I know, my garage is full of cans and bottles, and I'm sorting stuff, and here we go. But then the next thing was, there was an elementary school across the street from us where my kids went to school. Well, the next big idea was to cook and bake apple pies and sell them. And we baked like 400 pies at a time in my little oven. And we were just like shift work. Like all our friends came over and we're peeling apples and we'd sell them like this. Like the teachers, the male teachers especially, hey, I'll take 5, I'll take 6, I'll take.
My gosh.
Yeah.
They were homemade
apple pies,
There's
right?
not a lot better in life than
anyway. So first year we raised $23,000.
Oh my goodness!
Get out of here.
And we
just from pies or
pies, and then we do hot dog sales in front of supermarkets and stuff.
Did
like
anybody
that.
like pick up on what you were doing, and then they were like giving a little extra?
Yeah, yeah. And then there was a church. This is funny.
For the pie.
This is funny. There was a church a couple blocks up that heard what we were doing and said, Susan, why don't you come up on Sunday? We'll give you 10 minutes to tell us what you're doing. Because they were really, they want to hear more about that. So Sunday morning comes and, I'm getting ready. The kids are getting ready. And Susan's in the bathroom. I said, hey, we got to go. You're speaking this morning. She goes, I'm not coming. Oh, what? Yeah. You're speaking? I am not coming. Yeah. She's an introvert, but she does not want. Well, we speak all over North America now, but that was our first speaking engagement. We didn't show up.
Oh no!
She was so nervous. We didn't show up.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And then what happened was another thing that happened was there was a company in Thailand that heard what we do. They make enamelware jewelry, like for Disney and stuff like that. And we couldn't sell the Disney stuff, but they gave us $10,000 worth of enamelware jewelry. Oh wow! So we used to do jewelry parties, like Tupperware parties.
Yeah.
And so we raised $23,000 the first year. So I thought, okay, we did it. That was awesome. Praise the Lord. We sent the money off.
Yeah, that was good.
We did
Job
it.
well
We
done.
done it, right?
Yeah.
That was it. And this is even before. Then we get a call. Hey. We need more money for next month's rent, and we need more diapers and formula. What?
Yeah.
So here we go. So we just kept going, and we started a child sponsorship program. We registered as a nonprofit. We incorporated. We got a board of directors, like the whole shebang, right? So And then in
Were you still
19
working night shifts
I was still
through
working.
all this?
Yeah, so I go to work, come home, and go back to work because I'd be writing newsletters, I'd be writing all kinds of stuff like that, planning fundraisers, and
Not to mention, you have kids.
then we had kids,
Yeah.
right? Well, my kids. Then 1997, we went to Thailand for the free. We want to see this place, right? So we went, and my kids were small. My youngest was 5 at the time. Brothers, the 3 youngest, 5, 6, and 7.
Went with you and Susan.
Yeah, to Thailand for 3 months, and then we went back
Oh my
again
gosh,
for
for
9
3
months.
months?
Yeah, then we went back for 9 months. But anyways, so I'm thinking to myself, and we lost kids. Like, these kids are HIV kids, right? And I thought, what am I going to do if a kid dies while we're there?
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of freaked out.
Sure.
Well, we get there and we do a little tour. The manager, her name's Jane, she's from Australia. She's giving us the tour. And the kids are running around, they're holding your hands, they're all excited. And then we go through the nursery, there's a crib, and there's this little girl. She looked like a prisoner of war. She was just nothing but bones. And I picked her up, I remember picking her up. And it took my breath away. I couldn't breathe. And I said, Jane, what happened to her? Like, why is she like that? She had her head looked like a skull.
Yeah.
I could feel every
Like
bone
completely
in her body.
malnourished.
Yeah.
And I said, what happened? She was failure to thrive. And she just stared. She stared right through me. And I did this, and she didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And
You said failure to thrive?
failure to thrive. I said, well, what does that mean? She said, well,
Yeah, just turn on. There you go.
yeah. She said, no one's held her.
Oh, man.
No one's held this little girl.
How old was she?
She was like 18 months.
Okay.
And then we went home. I couldn't get her out of my mind. I never seen like it.
Yeah.
And then the next morning, we got a call in the morning. She died.
Oh, no.
So that was the first funeral we did.
Yeah.
And then in the first 3 days, 5 babies died.
Yeah.
I was broken.
Wow.
And I wasn't prepared for it. I remember it. And
But this
The
is
missionary-
something, was this something that was probably happening regularly?
but it was happening, but it wasn't happening like we might lose one a month or something. But
Right.
this was bam, bam, bam. Like this.
Right. And then to witness it firsthand was.
Well, it wasn't only that. I went to the home in the morning, and the woman, the missionary, hands me the baby, so clothe her and bathe her and get her ready for the. I'm like, what? I've never done that. So we're doing funerals. I'm like,
Yeah.
and my kids are running around while this is happening, right? They're all playing, and then people, like this one woman, we got word, the baby lived with us, and then she got a lot of pressure. She was a Hill Tribe woman, and she got a lot of pressure from the chief and their neighbors that, why are you letting these Christians raise your baby, blah, blah, blah. And when they took the baby back, and then the baby died. So we went there. It was like a hut, and the baby was wrapped in a blanket, in a towel, dirty towel, on the floor, and they're arguing, where's the funeral's going to be? And this woman's saying, no, these people fed my baby and fed me and took care of me. You guys didn't. You weren't there for me. Nobody came and gave me food for us. Nobody came to care for us. They did. So they settled. They compromised. We'll do the funeral, and they'll do the burial. I thought. Right. So we did the funeral, and she was wailing, this mother. Her husband brought HIV to the house and wiped out the family. And she was wailing. She was saying things like, it's all because of me, my son. It's my fault, my son. She was wailing. I'm trying to hold it together. And then we get the baby. We wrapped him in the blanket. And I'm just following directions now. Follow me. So I'm holding the baby. I get in the van. About 8 of us. And Susan stayed behind. We're going to what I thought was a cemetery. It was kind of like a cemetery, and we get to this place. A monk comes, takes the baby from me. I'm following these monks now. I see a pile of wood with a tire on it, and I'm like, it's like I was watching a movie, like I wasn't even there. And I'm thinking to myself, is that what I think it is? And they put the baby in the tire. And then a monk pours gas on it, and poof. I'm like, I couldn't believe I was just in shock. And that was my initiation.
Yeah.
But we led the mom to the Lord.
Yeah. Which country was this?
This is in Thailand.
Okay.
And that was to me awakening, a recommitment, and a sense of urgency to share the gospel for me.
Do you still have a relationship with her now? Do you know?
I think she passed away.
Okay.
She was HIV positive. So
Okay.
she passed away a few years later.
Okay, gotcha.
There was a number of incidents like that, right? And so then we came back the following year. Those missionaries went on furlough, and we took over. And what we noticed was, so here's the thing with HIV children born to an HIV mom, they'll test positive at birth. But it's a false read. It's called a false positive because it takes 18 months for a baby to develop their own antibodies. It's the mother's antibodies in their system.
Gotcha.
All right. So so after 18 months, you'll get a true reading. So what was happening to these kids, and this was criminal, was they would end up in government orphanages that were overrun, understaffed, and nobody wanted anything to do with these kids, and they would die from
Just neglect.
Yeah.
Malnourishment.
Yeah.
Neglect.
Right? Because nobody,
Right.
like I said, they would
they weren't
hose them
even
down. To
necessarily-
clean them, they would hose them down on
Yeah.
rubber mats. The only touch they would get was from latex gloves.
Because people are afraid.
So we were actually saving lives now because a lot of our kids that we would get come in positive, but that was a false reading. And then 80% of them were actually negative. 80%.
Wow.
Which is a
After-
miracle when you think about a baby shares the mother's nutrition and
Yep.
blood and all that.
Yeah.
So that's a miracle of God,
Yeah.
the mercy of God.
Yeah.
So what's happening is a lot of people would be adopting these kids. So these kids have been adopted to America, Canada, Australia, all over Europe, France, Denmark, Holland. And families that would adopt these kids would start contributing to this home and supporting that home. And we thought, while we were running the home, we thought, there's a lot of support here. And they don't really need us. So we started praying, God, where do you want us to go? So we were back home in Canada. And one day my wife wakes up and I'm having my coffee again. And she says to me, had this dream last night that they're going to Africa.
All this stuff is your wife's fault.
Yeah.
I know,
Like,
right?
I mean, you can.
God speaks to her, right?
You must have like this
so
trauma in the morning every time you're pouring your cup of coffee.
I know,
I
man.
mean, you're just a regular guy trying to enjoy your cup of coffee, and your
Right.
wife says, "Hey, honey."
Yeah, so she
guess
says.
what?
Yeah.
So what was happening was, so before that, so we're praying. So Lord, we want to do the same thing, but we want to serve these kids, right? So we're looking at Mexico, Central America. My wife speaks Spanish. I love Spanish. I love Spanish food. I love the music. Like, yeah, that'll be awesome, right? And we can even drive down there, so there won't be a lot of airfare. So we went to Mexico, we went to El Salvador, Guatemala. We're looking at all these places, and the doors kept shutting, right? So
Not easy to go help
yeah,
people in
some-
other parts of the world, is it?
yeah, it was all kinds of stuff, right? So I'm having my coffee. She comes in. I had this dream. We're going to Africa. I'm like, Susan, do you know how big Africa? We don't know anybody in Africa, right? Like we had connections in Mexico. We had connections and I thought maybe Asia, because we had a lot of connections in Asia now, or Mexico, or Central America. I'm like, do you know how big? And she goes, she got mad at me. She goes, I'm just telling you what the dream was.
Yeah. I
So-
like how both of these stories started with you going, "What?" and then she gets mad at you, and then now we have an
I
orphanage.
guess we're baking. Right. I guess we're baking more pie.
So she's in a kiosk that day at a mall. She has like our brochures and stuff, and she's doing child sponsorship stuff.
Yeah.
And this woman comes up to her, says, "Hey, did you ever think of going to Africa?" And she's like, "Yeah, as a matter of fact, yeah." She goes, "Well, she was a missionary in Botswana." She was like, "I have this friend in Zambia." Boom, boom, boom. So she gets the address of this pastor in Zambia.
Yeah.
So I start writing this guy, and I don't tell him what I want to do. I just say, "Hey, I met this lady. Can you tell me what's this AIDS situation in your country?" So he writes me back, and this is not email. This is like post. 2 months
Okay.
later, I get a letter back, And then and then I read some more. So how is that affecting your church, and what's happening with the economy? With like all these questions.
Is this a local pastor?
A local pastor
Okay.
in Zambia?
Yeah.
Right? He's a Zambian guy.
Yeah.
So
How are you translating that?
He's speaking English.
He speaks English.
Yeah,
Okay.
they speak
Got
English,
it.
right?
Okay.
So he's speaking. As a matter of fact, he was a pastor in Vancouver.
Interesting.
Oh my gosh.
And
Which
his
is
wife,
in British
his
Columbia.
wife, yeah, and his wife was physiotherapist at Vancouver General Hospital,
Okay.
and they moved back to their country to serve their people.
Yeah.
Right, amazing guy.
Okay.
He's actually still on our board. He's our
Yeah.
chairman of the board there.
Okay.
Anyways, so I didn't know this guy.
Yeah.
He's writing me letters, and after about 18 months or something, I had a pack of. I'm like, well, now what am I to do? So what we did was, we sent a couple over. I couldn't go. I was working. So we put together a
You still have
binder.
at this point another job, or are you full time at the?
I'm doing
nonprofit?
I got 2 full-time jobs now, right?
Okay.
So we put together a binder of questions like, what's the economy like? What's the government like? What's the economy like? What's the attitude to foreigners? What's the HIV
Culture.
situation like?
Yeah.
What's the education like? What is your medical system like? Like everything we could possibly think of, right?
Yeah.
So, what's crime like? Is it dangerous? Like all these things, right? Politically. And we send this couple off for 6 weeks. And they come back and they filled out all the questions. And they said, we had a meeting, a board meeting, and they said, well, if we can sum up everything that this binder says, we can do it in one word: despair. Despair. So I wrote the pastor, hey, so then by that time, they know that we're interested in starting a home. I said, would your church be willing to start with us? And we want to start the project. And then I went the following year for 3 months to buy a property. I got on a plane. I'm like, what am I doing? Where am I going? I had no idea what I was doing. Like, I had no idea. I had
You're going over solo at this point?
I'm going solo, just me. I'm going to go buy property, and I had cash. I didn't bring cash with me, but I was going to wire it over. But I had cash. And we bought this property, and 1 acre with a pretty large building. It's a beautiful building, right in town. And we came the following year to renovate it. When we brought a team with us, we just gutted the house, rebuilt everything. And Susan and I stayed behind, and we started bringing kids in. The first 5 kids all died.
Same situation.
Oh, HIV,
just
yeah.
neglect.
And it's actually, the poverty level was just mind-boggling to me. Absolutely mind-boggling. So we
So
just
then, when you bring in these kids in, do you have any contact with the parents, or these are just kids on the street that you?
usually the parents are gone.
Okay.
Usually
So
the kids.
So these are typically orphans.
Yeah, so there was one parent that I remember.
they're orphan, but they're not like in a different orphanage or something. You're
No,
finding them on the
no.
street, and you're just
Usually what happens is the extended family says, well, I got 6 kids of my own, and my brother died, and I got his
Gotcha.
kids, and I can't take care of them, right? So we had this one parent. This one parent came. A couple came. They knocked on the gate, and we let them in. And they were very, very sick. And they said, we can't take care of our daughter anymore. And they had HIV and stuff. So we took the daughter in. And then we heard about a few months later that the mom died. No, the mom and dad was still alive. People were dying, and then we reasoned that they're going to die soon. So one of our pastors we worked with came over and I said, oh, no, what happened was the baby, when we brought her in, she cried all night long. We couldn't figure out what to do. We were walking her, and then we realized her head was infested with lice. Right? So we shampooed her, we did all this. We actually shaved her head. And then she slept. So the next day, one of our pastors came over and said, I said to him, would you go to this family? And I don't know how he found them, because in these shanty slums, there's no street signs, there's no numbers. Would you go and find this couple, and here's some medicated shampoo, because if she's got it, can you imagine being like on your deathbed? So I don't know how he found this couple, but he went there and he knocked on the door and he said, oh, I'm Pastor so-and-so, and John and Susan sent me. And I have some shampoo I want to wash. So, and they don't have no running water. So he had to go down with the bucket, carry the water back from the creek. And he's shampooing their heads, shampooing their hair. And he's sharing the gospel with them. And both accepted the Lord.
Yeah.
They both died a couple months later. So those are the kind of stories.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's hard to even relate to some of this, as a very privileged first world U.S. citizen. And I've had very limited international travel, especially in regions like this.
Come with me.
Yeah.
At some point,
Seriously.
maybe that'd be a great thing to do.
Anyways.
Tomorrow. He already bought you a ticket.
Jared, I don't know if I'm ready. I got baseball coming up.
Well, that's why I got to go now before.
Priorities, right? Priorities.
That's right.
Well, it was really difficult. We would lose a lot of kids. Like I remember one time that Susan. So we never sent a kid to the hospital by themselves. We always sent a caregiver. But that time we had like 25 kids. We had a nurse working for us. We had a number of staff working with us. And
Are you employing locals then too?
Yeah, we employed all. There was all nationally run. There was no foreigners there.
Yeah.
So we would train people and hire people.
Yeah. I mean, you have obviously some medical trained people, or just loosely medical.
Like in Zambia, yeah.
Yeah, I would think
Well, I'll
so.
tell you more. We actually have a medical committee that helps us now.
Oh, wow.
So we would lose people and stuff. So one day we had a baby in the hospital, but it wasn't. She had a fever. It wasn't anything serious, but she had to be in the hospital. So Susan went to relieve the caregiver and to bring food. And she walked in as the doctor's pronouncing her dead. She was like 18 months. And so she was not expecting this. She came over to, how was your day and how's the baby and that kind of stuff. And the baby's dead. Then the doctor's pronouncing her dead and he wrapped her up in a blanket and he handed it to her. And he says, go down to the morgue and there's a doctor there who'll do the death certificate. So she's like shell shocked. She's like, huh? So she goes down the stairs because she doesn't trust the elevator because it always gets stuck. And she finds herself in the morgue in a lineup of mothers holding their babies.
Oh my gosh.
And now she's like in shock.
Oh my gosh.
And they're waiting to go. They're lined up to see the doctor. He's sitting at a desk and he's signing death certificates. And he says, yeah, I'll just put her in that fridge over there, 15 or whatever it was. So she opens the drawer and there's no room. It's full of babies. So she comes home and it was raining. And
I don't know how my wife would respond to such a thing. My wife's in medical where she's an RN, but I don't know how anyone.
It's a different world, man. I tell you, like this.
She must have been just like off in her own. I mean, only God is going to be able to help you deal with such a thing.
Well, she came home, it was pouring rain, and she's screaming at God.
Oh, yeah.
She says, God, I don't understand. We line up to go to McDonald's. We line up to go into the movie. We line up, and these women are lined up to put their kids in the fridge. So she's screaming at God, and God gave her a vision of eternity. And that's what kept us going.
Yeah.
Right? And then for me, then we got into retrovirals. Right?
Do we get to hear more?
He gave her a vision of eternity.
Yeah.
Jared wants to know.
Okay, so do we have a description?
vision,
Maybe we should have Susan join us.
Well, yeah, she has a whole different perspective on
I'm
things.
sure.
Like, it's so different like, when you hear her, because she she has this mother's heart, right? And,
Yeah.
like I'm the builder. I like to build stuff. I like to, and she's like, no, I'm building a home here.
Yeah.
Right? Anyways, God gave her a vision of heaven, of eternity, and how small our life is here compared to eternity. So we see a lot of suffering here. And the verse that always came to mind, like, because I work with a lot of pastors in impoverished countries, And I always think of the verse where it says the last will be first, the first will be last. And I say, amen, Lord.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
These pastors are heroes. They're absolute heroes. They suffer. They're willing to go through persecution. They're willing to, and I say, amen, Lord. May they be first.
Yeah.
Right? May they be the best in the kingdom of
Yeah.
God. Will you
Yes.
reward them for all those
Yeah.
things because we don't have a clue.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We live in such luxury, and they live with such sacrifices.
Yeah, when I think of, I mean, as I've kind of processed through some of that stuff myself, and I just think about, I think as human beings we think of death as the end,
Right?
and so you kind of have to
help it, right?
you have to get over that hump to recognize that it's not the end. It's just a part of the journey. So I think that's helped me anyways. I've kind of processed through early deaths or things that I can't understand when it comes to even like with the Old Testament, right? Where people be like, well, how can a good God like wipe out all the firstborn in Egypt? That's not that doesn't sound like a loving God. And I'm like, but we don't know what happened to them for eternity.
Yeah.
He took their physical lives away here, but maybe he just gently ushered them into, I don't know, God gets to.
He's the creator of life, so
Yeah.
it's not, for him, it's not murder. For him, it's just
So.
transition.
Yeah, I'm not saying that justifies anything.
No, of course-
as
of
far
course
as
not,
as far
but
as things going on in other countries
we don't
and
see the big
difficulties
picture
and
for what it is.
yeah, but what an incredible. Your wife sounds like she just has
She's a
this
trooper.
really cool, intimate relationship with God. It reminds me of my wife a lot, actually, and the things that
Women
she'll-
have this
Yeah.
intuition, or
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very, it's weird because, I don't know how it operates with ministry or within your home, but, I'm trying to be the spiritual leader at home. And then all of a sudden, God's like speaking. It's almost like I told her this morning, I said, God spoke to me yesterday and said, I need to be more respectful and conscious of the gifts that he's given her. And so really pay attention when things are going, when he's speaking things to her. And so it's interesting. It's fun to hear your story, I guess, and feel that relatability of, I understand, my wife coming to me and telling me something that I'm like, what are you talking about? That's crazy. So,
Right?
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, not at
no,
all.
that's good. We're having a
Very
conversation.
good. Yeah, I was kind of getting some of that same, like, sounds like Christiana in a little bit.
Yeah.
As they seem to have this extra connection.
Mm-hmm.
And that's awesome.
Yeah.
But that's what it takes two, right? I mean, two become one flesh. You two.
Well, we need each other, right?
Yeah.
You need each other.
Yeah.
She needs you for your what you do so great and your strengths, and you need her for what she does so great. And I mean, his plan is pretty perfect because we can't do it.
I think
alone.
it's a spiritual gift that I think doesn't get spoken about very often, and it's hard to understand. Is that it sounds like more like a prophetic gift, and I don't know if you guys have talked about that, if that's how you feel like you would categorize that gift in her, but I know with Christiana it feels very much like a prophetic type
Well, I
of
know
gift.
she's more sensitive than I am,
Yeah.
for sure, right? So, anyways, in 2005, we got antiretrovirals, with ARVs, which is the drugs, HIV people. And with those drugs, people that are HIV positive can live a normal lifespan. And we got them in 2005 in Africa.
Wow. In Zambia.
Yeah, so now we have a big problem because, all our kids are going to live, and what are we going to do with them? Right? So we had a
Good problem.
1 acre property. We had about 50 kids on it. Right?
Is that a drug that you have to take
Every day.
the rest of your life?
So
Yeah.
it used to be called the cocktail. It used to be like 15 pills.
Yeah, I remember hearing
Yeah.
about
Right?
that.
And it was a huge pill burden. You got to, be really disciplined. You got to make sure you take your medication. They reduced it to one pill. Easy. It was,
Yeah.
Right? You just take one pill a day, rest of your life, and you're good to go.
Crazy.
So we got that. And now we go, now what do we do? We got 50 kids.
Yeah.
They're all going to live. What are we going to do with them, right? So we thought, well, we're going to we should build our own school, because the other thing we noticed is that the education system is really poor in Zambia.
Yeah.
Right? Like, for example, one day I was going through the kids' books, and I noticed one of the little girls, her printing was outstanding. Like, and I said, hey, would you come over and read this to me? And she couldn't read it.
Oh, man.
She copied, like, so how they learn is the old British way of teaching is that the teacher writes something on a board, you copy it. And he'll explain what it is, but if you don't get it, you don't get it, right? Well, she copied everything perfect, like outstanding. It looked like a machine did, like somebody typed it, right? And she couldn't read it. So, like, man, we got to do something. So we thought we're going to build our own school. So we went out and bought property, which was a whole miracle in itself, the way it happened.
Yeah.
So we bought 72 acres, and we started
Your
developing.
story's full of miracles. So
Yeah, so we started developing it.
Right?
Yeah, the whole thing's a miracle.
yeah,
Right?
it's funny how
It's a
like,
miracle burger. It just keeps stacking.
and we keep being every
Yeah.
time it happens, you're still surprised.
Yeah,
You know?
that's why I named the book "Amazing Life," because every time everything's amazing. Like I get to Grace, I'm like, this is amazing, and I never get tired of it. I am just in awe. I can't believe God. Like, how did this happen? Right? Like, how did I? Because I was working night shifts, minding my own business. Right?
Yeah.
It's happening just because you're saying yes and you're taking action.
Yeah.
You know, so he's just going to keep using you.
Yeah.
for
Well,
good.
let me just say this too, because I said this to Susan one time. It's so profound, and I just want people to know that God's calling all of us. And I said to her, like, Susan, what do you think? Like, one day I was just going over this thing. I was just being amazed. I thought, I can't believe God used us, right? Nobody's like, how did he, well, why? So I said, Susan, what do you think would happen if we never said yes? What do you think would happen? She said, nothing. We would have just kept on living, and we never would have known the difference.
That's right.
That's profound. And think about all the things God's pouring into our lives every single day. Opportunities. Go talk to that person. Go talk to that person.
Yeah.
Go help that lady. Go help that single mom. Go encourage her. Go, we miss it all the time. It happens every day.
Yeah.
And what would have happened if you helped that single mom 3 years ago, or whatever the situation is?
That's right.
What happens if you answer those calls? Because we get them all the time. We just don't hear them.
We're all equipped in our own way to do things. And I think of like a person standing on the edge of a lake, a calm water, and throwing pebbles and throwing larger rocks and big ones. And they're all making different size ripples, but they're all ripples. And so maybe what I do or Jared does or you do, they all look different because we threw different size pebbles and rocks, but they all created an effect in the water that moved in somebody else's life.
Good analogy.
And I think we're all capable. It's just some people I think hold themselves back because they see someone else's great work. They see someone else's big ripple and they go, oh, I can't do
Or
that.
fear, right?
Right.
And I always
Fear not. The most recurring thing said in the Bible, right?
Yeah. But I think that God always gives you something small. Like for us, it was raising $17,000 out, and we never thought anything beyond that.
Right,
That was
right.
just small.
You
Right?
proved yourself in that
Right?
first year. Like,
So if you're able to start with the small things, answering the small call, like you're not going to get this huge.
How did she get that letter? Like, what was?
We had a neighbor that used to work in Thailand. They were good friends with this missionary. She
Okay.
got it, and she shared it with my wife. My wife's okay, we'll do it. I'm like,
Got it.
So what happened was we thought, okay, now we got a problem. So we started looking for land. We bought 72 acres, started developing that, and we built a boys' side first. We had all these different phases and stuff like that. So we started building in 2005, and then, but it was difficult too, right? And that's when the first story in that book, the death of a child, and we were still losing people to different things like malaria and different stuff like that. I'm like, God, why? Like I feel like I'm spinning my wheels here. I don't want to raise kids for them to go back into those shanty slums. Like, what's the point of doing that? And then that guy came to my door, middle of the night, and I don't know why I was in a bad mood that night, but I just opened a door. I was just annoyed with this guy. Then I noticed he's got tears in his eyes. I'm just, what happened? Like, And he says, "Oh, I need money to buy a coffin for my daughter." And I was just broken. I just couldn't believe my attitude. And I just wasn't expecting him to say that. And we did the funeral and everything. And I just couldn't get it out of my mind. So sometime during that week, he was part of my construction crew because we were building buildings, right? And I had a meeting with my guys. I said, "Hey, guys, I just want to know, you guys been working with me for a number of years now. What's changed in your life?" And you all looked at me like they didn't say a word. They looked like deers in headlights. They didn't say a word, like nothing's changed. And I'm like, well, let me give you an example. Like in my life, I want to have more money in my bank this year than I did last year. So I do things like I save my money, I invest my money, I make my money grow. I want to have a better relationship with God this year than I did last year. So I read my Bible, I pray, I get involved in church, I study the Word of God, I live the Word of God. I want a better relationship with my wife better than this year than I did last year. So I spend time, I'm intentional with my relationship with my wife, with my children. I want to have more knowledge this year than last year. So I read, I study, I do things to make myself grow in my brain, right? I just want to get better every year. So I said, for example, this little girl died of malaria. I said, like, for example, guys, when you get paid this month, go out and buy mosquito nets for your kids. It's $10. Go buy yourself a mosquito net for your kids. And then the following month, go buy your wife a frying pan so she can make some good meals for you guys. And then the following month, go buy a mattress because they all sleep on like potato sacks. Go buy a mattress so you can have a good night's sleep. And then go fix your roof because you guys are all builders and all leak. Fix your roof. And guess what's going to happen? After 1 year, you're going to look back and say, hey, I have money in the bank. My kids are healthy. We're eating well and we're sleeping well. My life's changed. And keep doing it every year. Little, small increments every year. And you're going to look back and you say, wow, my life has changed. I can do stuff. My family's healthy. My family's... Right? So then I thought,
it's a great lesson, though, no matter where you are living in the world.
It applies to everybody.
Concept.
It's
the
same
exact thing. I guarantee if you asked 10 Americans, how is your life, better this year than it was last year? They'd all scratch their head too.
Yeah, right? That's so.
I'm not reading any books. I still treat my wife like crap. I still need to do the remodel in my kitchen. It's like, holy cow.
But so I started thinking about it. Okay, I actually started writing things down, and that's how the book came out of. First of all, we got to get right with God. That's the first thing. Before you do anything else, you got to get right with God. And if you're right with God, you feel that peace of God and the leading of God. But you can't have that if you don't have a relationship with God. That's right. Right? That gives you peace, and that gives you, that gives you the starting point. And then choosing, the principle of choice, we actually get to choose our life. Right? What do you want? And what are you doing to get it? What's the plan? Right? So being intentional and then walking the extra mile. But why do you think you deserve more when you don't do more? Right? So, and then it's just principle after principle. I think there's 15 in that book. Right? It's just really common sense that God's like, why can't you guys do this? This is so easy. I give it to you, right? But so then I started teaching my kids. I did workshops. And then I did another book's called Amazing Abundance, because it's the same principle. Like, well, I'm broke. Yeah, but you get $1, you spend $2. No wonder you're broke. Right? Like, it's the same principle of doing small incremental increases at a time, and then you'll end up, it doesn't mean you're going to be a billionaire, but it means like you're going to afford to go on a vacation. Your kids can play sports. Your kids can have braces. You can take your wife out for dinner, whatever, right?
So you have this 72 acre at this point property that you've moved onto. This is,
we moved.
Building educational. It's a full campus. I mean, geez, we go to Hope Children's Home over here in Tampa that our business donates a lot of money to every year, and we're heavily involved. And that's 55 acres, so 72. That's a large piece of property.
The whole campus is 55.
55 acres is
okay.
The whole thing.
Okay.
So,
that's big.
are you still on that piece of property? Is it still?
Yeah, I got to tell you about it. So we built a school. Our school goes from preschool to 12th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a scholarship program. So every child has to pick. When they graduate, they have to pick trade school, college, which is a diploma program, or university, which is a degree program. So right now we have 75 kids in post-secondary education, including 5 in medical school. And we have
Wow.
our first doctor graduated. We have several nurses that have graduated. We have at least one teacher. We have one or two in law school. We have one in pharmacology.
Are they going to school in the country?
In the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually we have 2 going to school in Morocco.
Interesting.
Goodness.
So like, I don't even know what they're taking up there.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, so
This
they...
is like a Hope Children's Home in Zambia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, locally, this place, Hope Children's Home, is for children 0 to 18 years old whose parents and families are in a very rough shape or just for some reason cannot take care of that child.
Yeah.
And they are loved on and taken care of and educated and live a wonderful life with
Yeah.
people who care about them in a beautiful campus.
They're building a building right now so they can start bringing in like babies.
Yeah.
That's right.
Wow.
Yeah. Now they're starting to go more towards actually a community where they want mothers who are considering abortion.
Yeah.
It's called
Bundles of
Bundles of Hope, and they want to have a community
awesome.
where moms can go and have their babies and can get the help that they need
Yeah.
to encourage them to have their baby rather than the alternative.
Right.
And then if they still can't care
Yeah.
for that baby, at least that baby
Yeah.
can have a life.
Right.
They said
Mom
that
can
it's
get
always
through
been
that.
3. It's been like keep the baby and try on your own, abort the baby, or give the baby up for adoption. They wanted to give a fourth option of, hey, come have the baby with us, and we're going to walk with you for the first couple of years to teach you how to take care of your
That
baby.
is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's so much overlap with
Yeah.
what
Yeah,
you're
I love
doing
it.
on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they have a school on campus and,
Yeah.
all of those things as well, which is really cool.
It's almost like I feel like I should almost like connect.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to-
absolutely.
Just because you could help or learn from each other in some
Yeah.
way. And they do stuff in Honduras. They have a Hope Children's Home in Honduras, and also one in New Mexico, here in
Wow.
the States. And then now they're the next.
I love to meet these people.
Yeah.
The next
Absolutely.
mission. I was just at a benefit.
And they're right here in Tampa.
Yeah, they're right here in Tampa.
It's the best city,
55-acre
best city in the
That's
state.
right.
Unbelievable. And so, how much time are you spending over there? Obviously, there's a lot you can do remotely.
Yeah.
But how much are you over there? I know you were recently.
Yeah, so I stayed there up to 9 months at a time, whatever. But usually I go on 2 or 3 week trips.
Yeah.
So we have 100 staff right now, all Zambians. We have only one Canadian staff, and they're there to mentor our farmers and teach modern farming, modern agricultural techniques. But we have a great management team. We have a youth pastor and a pastor that's in charge of the village, and his wife, and we have a school principal. Like, we have all these different managers. We have like a construction manager, farming manager, dorm parent manager. We have obviously the school, the education, the management, and then we have cafeteria,
these-
and purchasing, like maintenance and security, like all kinds of stuff. Right?
All of it.
Are any of these employees people that have grown up in the orphanage?
A couple.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that kid Pakistan in the book.
Uh-huh.
He's my driver, and he's one of the construction workers.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he wasn't academic at all. Like, he was just like,
he worked with his hands.
yeah. But he's a great worker, and he married one of our girls, one of the girls that came in. So,
So
they're a
if-
great couple.
If someone was listening to this right
Yeah.
now, which there are people listening,
There are. I'm telling you.
and they're sitting there going, okay, great, but what could I do? What would be your encouragement to somebody, whether it be specifically for in helping with the ministry that you're doing, or maybe it's something else. Maybe God's calling them to do
Yeah.
something else.
absolutely.
Like, what would be your encouragement to them?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, first of all, pray and ask God, what do you want me to do? Right? And then maybe get
And then
familiar.
listen to your wife. I'm just.
And then wait for your wife to have a vision.
Yeah, that was a joke.
So, yeah. Yeah, but there's a lot of really great ministries doing a lot of good work that they can get involved with. So I would say, yeah, or contact us because we do need a lot of child sponsorships, and we're going to be doing a lot of new projects.
Do you do child sponsorships similar to like a Compassion International?
Exactly. Yeah. We do that.
And seedsofhope.com, right?
Yeah, seedsofhopecm.com. CM stands for Children's Ministry. There's a few other Seeds of Hope out there. So
Gotcha.
we're Seeds of Hope Children's Ministry.
Yes.
Gotcha.
We're based out of
Yep.
Don't forget the CM.
Washington,
Yep.
Bellingham, Washington, or Abbotsford, British Columbia.
If somebody wanted to read any of your books, how would they get a book?
You can find my books. I have two of them, Amazing Abundance, and You Too Can Have Amazing Life, and that's on Amazon. And some bookstores have them as well, but you can order it on Amazon, very simple.
Yeah.
So just, you can Google my name, whatever, that'll come up.
Yeah.
So what's next for you guys? Are there any other looming ideas or projects in the works? Or
Yeah,
is Zambia kind of got you all?
So a few years ago, we had friends that had a ministry in Thailand, and they were dealing with HIV women, and these were like adult orphans. Some of them came out of the sex trade. Some of them, their husbands brought home the virus, and they died, and the family shuns them now. There's a stigma associated with that, and a lot of them have mental illness. Like one of the women, her mother, when her daughter's reached age 13, she sold them, and all she's known is the sex trade. And another one, her brother, when her parents died, her brother used to sell her to his friends, and if she didn't do what she was told, they would taser her. So there's a lot of trauma. These women have gone through tremendous trauma. So they were ministering to them. There was home for them, and they did some vocational training. Some of them were able to leave, but most of them they're just not capable of living on their own. So we took over that ministry because our friend died. He had cancer. So before he dies, hey, John, would you guys come over and help us continue this program? It was really urgent. So we did that. So we're there, and actually we were home. We hired a manager, and we doing renovation. We're sprucing it up a little bit. And we got an email. Well, our chairperson there was a woman, is a pastor, and she deals with women and different things like that, ministries. And she said she bought a boy. I'm like, you bought a boy? Yeah, he's being sold for the third time. He's 4 years old. So we bought him. So we're going to bring him to you. You bought a boy? What do you mean? So you can bring him. We figured out, we made space for him. We had a caregiver for him. And then when Susan and I went there, soon after, we met this little boy. And we're like, how many more are out there like him? So we came back and we talked to our board, and we said, we want to know what's going on. We want to know if this is going to be a big need, and maybe we can do something because we can help this little boy. So we went back. We talked to police task force members. We talked to other ministries. We talked to ministries that do the rescuing. We talked to ministries that are associated with this street sex workers and stuff. And this is what we found out was there's a lot of organizations that do the rescuing with the police and stuff. And then what happens, they have nowhere to bring these kids. What do you do with these kids?
So they save them from this life, but then what?
But then what? So a lot of times they go back to the parents that sold them. Or I was talking to the police, and he was telling me a lot of them are from Laos or from Burma or from Cambodia. And I said, well, what happens then? Well, we just bring them to the border. I said, you just bring them to the border? Then what? Like, I've been to the Golden Triangle. I know what that border crossing is like, right?
7-year-old,
8-year-old, whatever, right? Yeah. Like, I know there's no social welfare there. There's nobody there who's going to take care of them. Like, who takes them from there? They go back.
Right.
I was just shocked. I was just angry at.
The lack of system.
We thought, okay, we can do this. So And it was the most amazing thing. So we contacted an architect. We contacted builders. We got the quotes. We got the drawings. We got the permit. Like everything. Boom, 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 boom. Within a year, we're up and running. The buildings were up. I couldn't believe the money came in. Like it's like $300,000 just came, boom, just like that. I've never seen something. We've been building these buildings for years now. I've never seen something come in on budget, way before time. Like bam, 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 and we got kids. We got like I think we got 4 kids in the beginning, and then we're there. Susan and I were there, and we get a call from social welfare. They got I think it was 14 kids. We're gonna bring them in this afternoon, and we already knew about them because
14 in one batch that were rescued.
Yeah, so they said we already knew. We were expecting them, and they for some reason they ended up in an orphanage, in the government orphanage first, and I don't know what they're doing, like some kind of medical stuff, whatever. And then, okay, today's the day we're going to bring them. So they come over with this big van, and we're excited. We don't know really what to expect, right? But we're kind of excited. And we have the rooms all set up. We have everything set up for them.
Yeah, of course.
And the van pulls up, and so it's our Thai manager, and me and Susan, and we're standing there, and the door goes swinging open, and these kids are in there, and they're silent. They're looking at us. They're scared. I knew right away they're scared.
Yeah, they don't know.
They don't know who we are.
What's this situation?
They don't know if they're sold. They don't know nothing, right? They're just scared. And the driver comes around. He starts barking out orders. You, get out. Come on. Move, move. He's doing it in Thai. I know exactly what he's saying. He's screaming at these kids. I want to punch this guy. Shut up. Right? So the kids come out, and they're like.
Oh, my gosh. And their age range is what?
The youngest was like 5 to 14. The oldest is 14.
Goodness gracious.
Right, so they're scared, and like we're looking at our manager. She knows all of us. She realized, okay, she's like, no, you're safe. We're gonna house you. We're gonna love you. Everything's good. Like she's trying to calm them down. There's no speech. There's no talk. They're just like blank, scared. So we brought over 2 duffel bags of Lego,
and then just dumped them.
So Susan goes, and I don't know what. She went, drags these duffel bags out. She's kind of motioning to the kids, and she gets on the floor. We all get on the floor, and the kids get on the floor, and they're like, "What? They had never seen Lego before in their whole lives. They never seen Lego." I'm telling you, within a few minutes, giggling,
Of course, they're kids.
giggling, and they're built like they figured it out.
Yeah.
I mean, we were like. They're kids. All of a sudden, you never would have guessed who these kids are. They're just a bunch of kids playing. That's what I said. The Sound of Freedom.
Yeah, the video that you
The video
sent.
had?
Yeah,
Well,
I
they're
played
not-
it for Jared.
So then the playground came after. But
Yeah.
Right?
Shooting baskets. And
we were just there in October, was it? And there was this little girl. I don't know what she went through. She's about 12 to 11, and she's unresponsive. Like, she won't talk. She won't look at you in the eye. She'll look down. Like, we don't know what happened to her. And she won't even talk to Susan. She was, like, with women, she was even worse with women, which was strange.
Yeah.
So we have a couple that are dorm parents for the boys, and then we have another couple of women for the girls. But the dad is teaching all the kids how to play guitar, right? So now they're going to do a special evening for Susan and I because we're going to leave the next day, and they're doing this performance.
the music. That
Right?
was the
Yeah.
other video that you sent where the kids are performing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't
You sent
remember.
me
I
two.
can't.
You
I
sent
can't
me
remember.
one of the playground, just very quiet and serene, with the kids all outside just playing.
And laughing and
Yeah,
having
giggling.
fun.
You can hear it, and
Yeah.
like it should sound.
Yeah, right.
on a
Like it should
playground.
sound, right?
And then an indoor performance of some song.
Yeah.
with the guitar.
Yeah, I didn't show you her face because I don't show the face of those kids, right? So I was sitting there, and I'm like, Susan, it's her. She's singing at the top of her voice. She's playing guitar, and it's worship song, and she's worshiping. And I'm like, I can't believe it's her. It's like I was just like, I couldn't believe. I was just praising God, like, what a miracle! This girl has come out of her shell. It was so
Yeah.
amazing.
That's amazing.
So
And how much time did that take for her to get to that?
it's been over a year.
Yeah.
So we have a psychologist. So our project in Thailand per person, like per child, costs us a lot more because we've hired a social worker, a nurse, and a not a psychiatrist, but a psychologist. And then we have our regular managers and dorm parents and maintenance staff, all that kind of stuff. But or then we have private Christian school because we send our kids to Christian school.
Yeah.
Right? We don't want to send them to Buddhist school because we want the school to reinforce what we're teaching.
Yeah.
That God loves you, God forgives you, God is cleansing you, God has a plan for you, God is, all these things. Like, you're not going to get that in a Buddhist school. In Buddhist school, you're going to get, if you're suffering, it's because you did something in a previous life.
Sure.
So we want healing. We were praying for healing for these kids, that God will raise them up and do amazing things through their lives, right? So our plans for that home, we've decided that, so we started small. We wanted to start really small in Thailand with the children. I think we have 16 right now. I'm not really sure, 16. And so we built it in a way that it's modular, we can add on. So we have the playground in the middle, you saw the playground. And now we want to build 2 more homes and a library because we want to really put a big emphasis on education. They're behind education because of their background, because they missed out on a lot of stuff. So we want to really encourage and help them with their learning.
Yeah.
How much space do you have here at this location?
We have about 5 acres on that. Okay. So we have room. So what we did, we had the property, we subdivided. The women are on one side and then the children on the other side.
Yeah.
And we put like a wall between them. But they interact, but they also have their own space.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. It's good.
Amazing.
So
thank you for what you're doing.
Yeah.
It takes good people to pardon me for my huddle interruption.
Yeah, I would say
it takes good people to stand up against evil.
Yeah, I'd say it takes faithful people.
Faithful people.
People who not only hear, but then listen and respond in obedience. Like that's like without the second, like you said earlier, your wife would have come to you and you said, "Hey, that's awesome," and you do nothing. Well, then nothing happens.
Exactly.
So
right?
it's that response and obedience to the Spirit that is so key for all of us, and that's how God has chosen to transform the world through His people. But it only works. Number one, we have to listen. Number two, we have to respond in obedience. So thank you so much for repeatedly. It wasn't the one-off of hey, we did it. Back to British Columbia and things that we know, to continue to listen and continue to say, hey, what's next? And I always like to encourage people too, like that's what makes life with Jesus, like it's an adventure and you never know what the next turn is going to be. And you never know the crazy ways that God's going to show up and do. I don't know, to me, it takes life with Jesus from being about how can I not sin to, hey, how is God using me to build His kingdom? Like these are two different things, and I don't think God wants us to live in that world of, man, I just got to not sin today. Like that's not where God wants us to live. He wants us to live in that space of, hey, I want to use you to do something to help another person be better and to transform that life. So I just thank you for being that example and for allowing us to hear how God is just using you guys as normal people to do incredibly supernatural things.
Yeah, and you know what? I really feel privileged.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I wake up and I think, what did I ever do to deserve this? Because it's been an amazing journey for me. And for my kids, like I got 5 daughters, and 4 of them are nurses because of this.
Yeah.
Right? Like my one daughter's a pediatric palliative nurse, right? Because that's what she did as a little girl. She was giving out meds, right? And my other daughter's the adopted one. She's going into psychology to deal with adoptive kids and their trauma and different things, right? So this is all because of that.
Yeah.
No, and my kids have traveled the world. They've lived in Asia and in Africa with me.
Such a big deal to be able to see
Unique.
Yeah, they have a whole
outside of your own context.
Yeah, it's just been an amazing
That's good.
journey for me. That's what I wrote in the book. Living a life of faith should be an amazing journey.
Yeah,
An
absolutely.
amazing adventure,
Yeah.
right?
That's right.
That's right.
God doesn't want us sitting in a
That's
rocking
right.
chair.
That's right. Yeah,
And
watching Netflix.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Which isn't an awful thing to do
Yeah.
late at night,
Yeah.
when you have the time after, working all day.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, well, not when you're working your second job at
Well,
night. I
that's
guess.
true. He needs to sip on some coffee to keep himself awake to watch an extra Netflix show special. But that's what's great about the name too, is seeds of hope.
Yeah.
We're seed planters
Yeah,
as people.
Yeah.
God grows the tree.
right.
But if we can just plant seeds
Yeah.
in others and just be catalysts in some way. I always feel like I play such a small part in things in God's plan, but I at least feel like with the podcast, I'm giving voice to people who are doing amazing things and sharing that. And I feel like, story and storytelling of our lives is really what connects people and what touches people and moves people to action. So at least in some small way, that's my ripple is.
Well, Chris, I think in
Hoping.
heaven you're going to be really surprised because people are going to be coming up to you. Hey, man, I heard you on the podcast and
Yeah.
you changed my life.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Yeah.
You don't
or
know, right?
someone
This-
I had on the podcast changed. You heard Joe's story and that
Yeah.
moved you, and so that was
Yeah.
moved you to reach out to me, and then
Yeah.
sure enough, here we are talking.
Yeah.
So how cool!
Yeah.
It's wonderful. It's seedsofhopecm.com.
Yeah.
For anyone interested in helping and in learning more about what John is doing, how you can help, and look for those opportunities in your own life. And I'm sure they're there if you really do look and if you get in prayer and ask God to show you those opportunities. They'll show up. I wanted to do something which I typically never do, but it's very short. The last chapter is your eulogy section, and I just thought it's kind of an entertaining way to end, because I was not familiar with this story that you started it with. And I thought it was very interesting of the two brothers.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted to just share that with the audience. So you'll get this in John's book, You Too Can Have an Amazing Life. So John, chapter 16, your eulogy. I promise people, I'll make this short, but I thought I was really moved by this, and it's kind of a nice laugh to end a pretty serious conversation. You open with Proverbs 21:21, whoever pursues righteousness and love finds life, prosperity, and honor. And then it goes like this. A story is told of two wicked brothers. It seems they had swindled and taken advantage of everybody in their small town. They were known for their dishonesty and shrewd dealings. They caused tremendous hardships for everyone they met. One day, the younger brother died suddenly, and the older brother went to see the pastor of the church where the funeral would be held. He promised the pastor a large sum of money if in the eulogy he would say that his brother was a saint. The pastor had quite the dilemma, as the church really needed the money. But to say this man was a saint would have been outrageous, to say the least. In addition, the pastor would have lost tremendous respect from his congregation if he ever said such a thing. The day of the funeral came, and the little church was packed, as the parishioners had heard of the pastor's dilemma and wanted to see how he would handle the situation. I'm sure Jared really wants to know.
I'm glad that that's when the page turned,
It is.
Like, ooh, it's the right timing for the
Anticipation.
page turn.
As the service began, the pastor stood up and said the usual prayers and required rites of the church, and then started the eulogy. He pointed to the man in the coffin and said, "He was a much despised man because he robbed and cheated everyone he had ever met. There wasn't an ounce of kindness anywhere in his heart. But compared to his brother sitting there in the front row, the deceased was a saint." And that's how the pastor was able to say,
He was a saint.
He was a saint.
What's the lesson of this
The
story?
lesson is, if you're a pastor of a church, be very discerning in someone offering large sums of money to lie. And think about it for a little while. Maybe you come up with something pretty creative to say like that. No, it was really, the whole meaning behind the book, obviously, is that there's so much opportunity for us out there in our interactions with people, and that we should realize in every day that there are moments to live our best life. There's people that we can love on, that we need to show that love to, that we need to tell them, and every day is an opportunity to do that, and never have lived with those regrets. None of us need to be in that situation where we're near death, regretting all of those what ifs. Today, live out your what if. Make it a reality so that you don't have those regrets. And I think you're a man of no regrets.
Yeah, very little anyways.
Yeah, very little anyways, right? So it has truly been an honor for you to come here and to continue, just bless you.